Hello everyone, I hope this video finds you well. I hope you are feeling well and thinking positive and making the most of life. And this week we are learning the fourth chapter of Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers. And I would like to take a short time over here to talk about the fourth Mishna, Perek Daled Mishnah Daled. The fourth Mishnah reads as follows: Rabbi Levitas, Ish Yavne, Rabbi Levitas from Yavne said, Ma'od ma'od have a shefal ruach. Be very, very humble. Shetikfas enosh rima. For the end of man is worms. So Rabbi Levitas is telling us just one thing. He's saying the importance of humility is so great that he decides to use a phrase which is extremely rare. He's telling us that humility is so important that we have to use a double term, ma'od, which means very, 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 very humble. And humility has got to be unique in that sense, because we don't find that phrase anywhere else. We don't find that about any other of the characteristics of man, any of the other midos. All we find is here, that it uses this double term of being very, very humble. Now, the way he says to get there is to think about the end of man, think about death, think about the fact that after we die, our bodies will potentially become nothing more than fodder for worms. And what really is this world all about? And that should help humble us, as the Gemara tells us. Now, this term of being very, very humble is unique over here, and as the commentaries on our Mishnah note, this characteristic, this midah of mankind, is unique amongst all the other midos in this sense. Because typically, as the Rambam writes, we need to always choose a middle path when it comes to our midos. We need to be giving, but we need to temper that, because it's not always good to be giving. We need to be happy, but we can't be that happy all the time. We need to be generous, we need to be kind. These are all traits that we need to work on, but they all need to be tempered. There always needs to be that middle of the road, that balance that we need to have. However, based on our Mishnah, the commentaries say that the exception to this rule is humility. Humility is something that needs to be to the extreme. Even though all the other midos that we have, all of our other traits should not be extreme. When it comes to humility, that's something that should be extreme. We should be very, very humble, as Rabbi Levitas tells us. So, if a person is able to understand humility, then perhaps they can work on becoming very, very humble. So the first thing we have to do is understand it. So to understand humility, we have to realize that humility is not about lying to yourself. If you have a lot of money, it's not saying I don't have a lot of money. If you have a beautiful voice, it's not saying I don't have a beautiful voice. If you are very giving, it's not saying that, oh, I'm really not very giving. That's not humility. That's lying. That's simply untrue. And that's not something that is healthy, and it's not something that we should be doing. Humility is understanding that everything comes from Hashem. Understanding that the fact that I have a giving spirit doesn't mean that that's something that I've created. It's not something that I've worked on, and because of that, that's how I am. It's a gift that Hashem gave me. It's the way I was born. It's the way Hashem programmed me. And it's something that I need to use for His service. So if I were to think of all of the talents that I have, and I would look at them as gifts, and not even necessarily as gifts, but as things that have been entrusted to me, then that will help me get to this stage of proper humility. And the parable would be if the king gives a messenger a bag of gold coins, and he says, go distribute this to the poor people in such and such a town. When the person would get there, he'd feel great about what he was doing. He's giving out all this money, he's helping all these poor people, they're getting more than they've ever had before. But he understands that he's just facilitating the will of the king. It's not his money, he's not the one who's being generous here. He's getting paid to do what he's doing. It's not him, it's the king who's giving him this bag of gold to give out and to do good with. And that's the way we have to look at all of our talents and all of the goodness that Hashem has given us. If we are wealthy, we have to realize that's Hashem giving us that bag of gold. It's not for ourselves. If it was for ourselves, then we wouldn't be happy. The way to be happy in life is to do for others. It wouldn't be humble if it was for ourselves. We would think that we've accomplished. We have to realize that no, Hashem has given this to us, and He has entrusted us with this money because He intends for us to use it for the right purposes. So if we're going to be happy in life, we need to be putting others first. We need to think about, instead of what kind of car can I buy with this money, maybe we need to think about, well, maybe I could help so-and-so get a more comfortable car for them, for themselves, not for me. Don't put me first. Put the other person first. And that will allow you to have proper humility, and it will also allow you to have true happiness in life. Now, there is also a word of caution that the commentaries mention over here. The Machna Levi writes that there are times where there are people who are perhaps outwardly humble, but they're not inwardly humble. There isn't true humility. Now, we shouldn't be looking at other people and thinking, oh, is this what that person is? No, we should be looking at ourselves and asking ourselves, am I just outwardly humble, or am I truly humble? Now, the way to gauge that is to think about what's really going on inside. When I look and I see other people and I see the things that they do, the things that they say, how do I regard them? Let's say, for example, I have a certain belief. I think something is a certain way. Somebody else thinks otherwise. When I hear that other opinion, in my mind, is that equal to mine? Or is my opinion the given? My opinion is what's right. I know what I feel, and I know that it's right, and somebody else has an opinion. If that's the case, then we're not truly humble. The truly humble person, when they hear another opinion, it will be an equal footing with their own. They won't have that natural tendency to feel that what they think is right and what the other person thinks is just what they think. But they're not actually knowing that. I know what I think. They just think. They have an opinion. I have knowledge. I know. That is not humility. Although that's normal, that's not humility. Humility is that if I think something, I understand that it's just that. It's just an opinion. It's just the way I feel. And if somebody else has a different opinion, it should be an equal footing. And I should now have a perfectly even doubt in my mind. Is that person right? Am I right? It's 50-50. As long as I can balance that and I can say that they're on equal footing, that's humility. Now, is there a step beyond that where a person says that no, the other person is definitely right? Is that healthy humility? Not necessarily. But certainly if it's 50-50, that I can respect someone else's opinion to the same degree that I respect my own, that is tremendous humility. That's difficult. It's not natural. It's something that you need to work on. You need to train yourself. It's not something that comes normal to people. But that is a trap that many people fall into, that they might act humbly on the outside, but inside they still feel superior to others in many ways. So if we need to give ourselves an assessment, and we need to think about, where am I holding in the humility department? We need to ask ourselves, firstly, am I putting others before myself? Am I thinking about others' needs before my own needs? Am I looking at all the things that I have gathered in life, or all the things that I have been given in life, all of my talents, all of my assets, all of that? Is it me, or is it something that has been entrusted to me? That's the first question we need to ask ourselves. And once we've answered that, and if we're putting other people first, then we need to ask ourselves, deep down, do I feel superior to others? Is my opinion always right? Or at least the vast majority of the time right? And typically when people disagree with something that I think they're wrong, then that's not proper humility. We need to be able to grow in humility and recognize that no one else is any less off than we are. No one else's opinion is any less important than our own. And we need to be honest with ourselves and recognize that everybody is in this sense equal, and we need to be able to appreciate everybody else, appreciate their opinions, their feelings, etc., and that will help us gauge our humility and make sure that it is the internal and proper humility that our Mishna speaks of. So again, just to recap, Rabbi Levitas is telling us that the idea of humility is unique amongst all the characteristics of man. We need to be extra humble, extremely humble, and we need to make sure that it's both external and internal. We need to make sure we recognize that Hashem has given us everything that we have, and we need to recognize that Hashem has given us things for others, not for ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves, am I internally humble? Am I truly humble inside? Or is that something that I haven't gotten to that point, and it's something I really need to put an effort into and recognize that what I am doing right now is perhaps not the proper humility. So again, understand, being humble is not normal. It's not part of the natural psyche of mankind, but it's something we can all accomplish. It's an area we can all grow in, and that is what Rabbi Levitas is telling us. So in the merit of our learning this, hopefully we will be able to, in fact, incorporate at least a little bit of this into our lives and increase our humility to the point that we can at least say that we've made some progress, that at least we're trying to become more humble in our lives. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful Shabbos.